Hello and welcome to the SC Playbook podcast, the fourth episode of the 2024 NRL preseason, proudly brought to you by Pat and George from Mortgage Choice SCW. I'm your host, Tim Williams. Team List Tuesday has arrived for 2024, the first of the season. Look, not quite the round one or the round zero Team List Tuesday, but still a Team List Tuesday nonetheless. We have the teams for the first week of NRL trials here to talk through them with me and a ton of other stuff. The SC Spy. Spy, how are you?
Good, mate. Chatting to you properly this week after a slow start last week.
Bit more than a hello.
In business.
Yeah.
Ready to rock.
Not much more, but a bit more.
Yeah, just to give you a little bit of the time, mate.
That's right, to start, mate. Also with us today, a very special guest, a man who taught me all the ways of podcasting, all the ins and outs. Supercoach Godfather, Tom Sangster.
Mate, I'm still learning how to podcast myself. But thanks for that intro and good to be on, man.
I think we had you on this time last year during the preseason. I said that my exact intro is just moulded off you because it's all on you. So I'm just like...
Oh, mate, as long as you don't have to deal with Rob Sutherland every day, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, thank God. The Spy's a huge upgrade on that.
That's the first compliment I've ever got from him.
Yeah. Also with us today, look, unfortunately, Matty, the Waterboy, unavailable today. He's actually gone missing in action since we lost Campbell Graham and Ty Munro during the week. So he's been unsighted from bloke duties, playbook duties, just about everything. So we've got Guru on that. No, we've actually got Matty, the Waterboy. Matty, tough week.
Oh, it's tough. And Guru's the one that told me about Tyrone Munro, actually, and he waited until Saturday night when I was having a lot of fun with my friends, is in the best possible environment, to text me, hey, by the way, Ty Munro's out. Ruined my whole weekend, so thanks, Guru.
I think he had a little scoop on it as well, so like he easily could have kept that till Sunday for
Oh, yeah, I didn't find out till, I think, Sunday night. Like, you know, besides that, I didn't hear it anywhere else, so...
Matty,
yeah, devastating.
Can I ask you, Matty,
Yes.
though, is it better off copping that while you're having fun on the drink, whatever it may be, or would you rather get it Sunday morning when you're dusty? Maybe it's better to just get it out.
Nah, you know what? You make a really good point. I'd much rather Saturday night because I forgot about it within about 3 minutes. Yeah. But I still woke up Sunday and that's the first thing I thought.
Of course.
Munro's gone.
Tommy, you'd be on deck for... You'd be pushing a decade of Supercoach Godfathering, I'd say.
Or more. I think it's like 14, 15 years that it's been around. And I was there from the first rounds. I think it's 15 years.
Yeah.
Decade and a half.
Walked into it nicely, didn't you? Working at the Telegraph, and did you finish really high up in one of the first years of it, or certainly your first year at working there?
Yeah, I finished 92nd pretty early on and haven't gone better since.
Yeah.
But yeah, I came in through cricket, actually. I was a cricket reporter first, and then when you're at the Telegraph, you just get, as you know, you just get sucked into the rugby league vortex. And I was always a league fan growing up too. So yeah, that's how it happened.
Yeah, no matter what sport they get you in there for, you're going to end up in that rugby league circle in some
no
way or
what,
another.
Yeah.
We've got another first tonight then. I'm around all these blokes and Clementine and then they're all finished first, second, buddy, fifth, sixth, whatever. My best finished is 91st, so I've finally got someone just...
That was probably recent too. Mine was 14 years ago.
2 years ago. It all counts though, doesn't it? Number on the board.
It is good to have you along, mate. Boys, on today's show, we'll do a little bit of a short Q&A with Tommy Sangster, talking all things Supercoach 2024, any changes to the game. A few questions have come in for Tommy from the SC Playbook listeners as well. The first team list Tuesday of the year, the key Supercoach pointers from that: Drew Hutchinson getting the gig as starting halfback over Toby Sexton at the Bulldogs, one of the big winners out of that. And our final club previews of the preseason. The Roosters, is Angus Crichton the world's biggest bargain, or is he a trap? The Storm, do we pay up for Harry Grant or look elsewhere? At the Warriors, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, is he an undervalued player on return? The Parramatta Eels, do we lock in Dill Brown from round one, or do we look for value elsewhere at 5'8"? And finally, the Tigers. The big question there will be, is there any value starting with them with the round one bye, which makes things a little bit awkward. We will then finish it up with a few listener questions for the week. From next week, guys, we'll be through all of our team previews. We'll have a week of trials in the bag. We'll have another week of team lists to go off. So from there, we'll be able to look at things like cheapies, draw analysis, our team reveals, all the trial pointers that have come out of the weekend's action, and all that good oil. Before we do get into it, the SC Playbook subscription package is available for the 2024 season. $40 for the NRL content for the season. Access to additional premium articles each and every week of the preseason, end of the NRL regular season, access to our WhatsApp group, community all in one place. We've been setting up draft leagues in that. We'll be setting up some 20-man leagues as well. Contributors are in there, late mail threads. We've got Adam Styles on board this year as our late mailman, which is very exciting. A ton of good things going on in there. And, of course, access to our unlimited group major prize. If you knock us all off this season, it's $1,000 up for grabs if you're an SC Playbook subscriber. Open to everyone, though. So if a non-subscriber wins, it's $500 to the non-subscriber, $500 to the top-ranked subscriber. That code is 743596. Jump in and take us on. Boys, let's get stuck into it for this week. And we'll start with Team List Tuesday, the first of a few trial pointers. Spy, I'll start with you, mate. Drew Hutchinson named at halfback for the Dogs over Toby Sexton, as mentioned. Dual halfback centre wing at $355K. There were a few rumours going around that he was the front runner to get that spot and partner Matty Burton in the halves. The Doggies have named a pretty strong side. So before we get too much into all of these team list pointers, there are a handful of sides who have named really strong ones, particularly the Bunnies and the Dragons in the Charity Shield. So you get better indicators from some. We understand they're only week one trial sides. It doesn't mean everything, but we've got a bit out of them. Talk to us about Drew Hutchinson. Are you interested?
Get him in, boys. In the centres, starting half.
That confident.
Good base. Good base is the key, I reckon.
Great base. Loves a run.
If you've got a good base and you're playing in the halves, you have every chance. He's, $350K. I can't say I've deep dived into him at all yet. I just know he's going to be every chance to be in my side. So he's currently in my draft based on that news, and it gets pretty encouraging.
Yeah, if you get a starting half, dual position, as I said, good base, Drew Hutchinson, a little bit hard to go past, but there's also some red flags there too. Tommy, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking it's a pretty decent buy. I'm hoping a better cheapie comes along, 355. He's not even really a cheapie. He's a mid-ranger, let's face it. But if
Way to kill the mood, mate. You've been on for 5 minutes.
If the other cheapies don't pop up and don't get named for round one, then you've definitely got to consider him 355K. I know it's the Bulldogs. They don't score points. But if he's there for round one, you would think they're backing you in. They're backing experience there. And you'd hope that he at least gets a few games there. Although the Bulldogs, realistically, they just chop and change so much.
I will say as well, obviously you mentioned cheapies there, Tommy, but he's someone I'd be happy to play. So that's why I'm happy to spend that little bit extra on someone like Hutch rather than one of them bottom dollar cheapies. They're not really in the side, so if I if he's probably to play. If I'm not going to play him, I won't bother at that price.
It's that awkward price as well, isn't it, at $355K, where if it goes wrong, you've paid that bit more than you probably needed to, and funds that you could have allocated elsewhere in your round one team. But at the same time, there's probably going to be a handful of CT dub cheapies that maybe we don't start with, sub 300K. It is an easy downgrade. If someone else fires or bags an early double,
there'll be someone there you want, so it makes that easier.
Boys, Blake Taaffe, fullback for the Doggies. Blake Taaffe, I should say. Bronson Sherry named at centre for the Doggies. Ryan Pappenhausen returns for the Melbourne Storm. Really, really encouraging to see him named at fullback in a weak Storm outfit, but we just need to see minutes under Pappy's belt, and just to get a look at him is very, very exciting. Hopefully we get a couple of trials to have a look at little Pappy before potentially locking him into our round one teams. Also at the Storm, as mentioned, named a pretty weak side. The rumours of the preseason that Trent Loiero had been training as a middle and at lock. He's been named at lock. No Sean Bloor and no real heavyweight forwards for the Storm. So Spy, it's got to be positive, I think, at the very least.
Very positive, yeah. Not much to add to that. It's just bloody good news.
Thanks, mate. Good analysis. Tommy, Sammy Hughes starting for the Doggies. They've named some pretty decent a pretty decent side in general. There's no Stephen Crichton there or a couple of others, but pretty good side. One of the most popular cheapies to start the season, Sammy Hughes. Again, we get another good look at him, what his sort of scoring output might look like, and again, it's an encouraging one.
It is, and so I've sort of got a 50-50 call between Hughes and Liam Knight. Looks like Hughes is ahead at the moment. I know we can't really trust the teams for the first week of the trials, but Hughes starting ahead of Liam Knight is pretty big news, and we want Hughes to be ahead in that pecking order because he's cheap. He's basically bottom dollar. And then you've got Liam Knight almost at the mid-range point of the upper end of the cheapies.
I had a bit of a look at Liam Knight this morning, actually, and I was thinking, you know what, like he kind of averaged too many minutes last year, and if he gets good minutes at the Dogs, he could be a real goer. And said, I don't have it in front of me, but he was about that mid, like 350-odd K, and he averaged like 32 or 33 minutes last year. So I'm like, he'd really need to increase minutes to warrant relevance to start this season. Over at Matty Buxton's Bunnies. I don't think I've ever called you Matty Buxton on this podcast. That was really weird.
I got a bit My mic's just screwed up. I got a bit nervous there.
Yeah.
So nervous that I just screwed up my mic. Don't know what I was hearing.
I think it's because I was just talking about Matty Burton, and it has to have just...
Yeah, I'm one letter away. I'm one letter away from him.
Same shit.
Matthew Buxton to the principal's office.
Both tall, athletic weapons.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Mate, a suspicion you had earlier in the pre-season, talking when we did our Bunnies preview, we were all sort of hoping to see Tallis Duncan named starting on the edge for the Bunnies, especially because they've named quite a strong side for the Charity Shield. Jai Arrow got that spot on the edge. Tallis Duncan named in the reserves. Look, it doesn't mean everything, but not ideal because they're obviously wanting to play Arrow on the edge.
Yeah, exactly right. If this wasn't the Charity Shield, I'd probably not worry about it too much. But they usually do tend to lock a few, how do I put this? Like, they don't put their strongest team out, but it's stronger than most of the other teams in the comp at the moment. So, obviously, all the Indigenous boys aren't playing, and Tallis is number 18, but having Jai Arrow as that starting edge there says to me that he'll be there round 1.
For sure. And for the rest of that side, as you said, Latrell Mitchell on Indigenous All-Stars duties. We know Ty Munro, the news came through this week, he's injured till around about round 6 or round 8. They've named Alex Johnston on the one wing, Tane Milne on the other, Isaiah Tass at centre, Richie Kenner in the other centre spot, starting to look a little bit weaker there. Jackie White not back till round 3. Is that how Jacob Gagai, I should mention, at fullback as well? Do you see the centres and wingers lining up like that to start the year? Obviously, Jacob Gagai has been talked about a bit as well, who could slot in at centre. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I would think that as good as Jacob Gagai has been tracking, the fact they've put Kenner and Milne respectively at centre wing says to me they'll do that. That's what without seeing any piece of preseason, that's what I would have guessed. So that's probably the safe option that they'll go with for round 1.
Who's the backup fullback if Latrell goes down, do you think? Is it Gagai? Is it Johnston?
To be honest, it's probably Munro or Johnston. Obviously, Munro's gone now. Like, it was Blake Taff last year. Yeah. So, yeah, not too sure. Probably would be Alex Johnson, given Munro's injured.
Sydney Roosters named a strong side for this week's trial. Obviously going over to Vegas and playing the week before everyone else for their first round of the season. Probably wanting to get a good run under the belt. So they've named a good side. And the interesting ones there, boys, for me, that edge back row spot, the key watch this preseason, Satili Tupanua coming back from lengthy injury layoffs. 398k has been named to start on the edge alongside Nat Butcher. Angus Crichton named on the bench. It'll be really interesting to see where Angus Crichton's injected, whether it's in the middle, whether it's on the edge. Sua Wong, the cheapy mid-ranger. No, actually he's about mid-400s Wong, so certainly not cheapy. Named in the reserves. Again, we don't read into everything, but of all those guys, the winner there, Tommy, is Satili Tupanua, who could come onto the radar if he's starting round 1.
Definitely 100%. I mean, we're going to get a good mid-ranger there at the Roosters. It's just a matter of who it's going to be. It could be Satili. It could be Wong. Crichton, we'll probably get to him a bit later, but I don't think it's going to be Crichton. He looks like he's on the outer at the club. Yeah. I think we can put a line through him. Either way, at the Roosters, there's some seriously good buys this year, and we will get one of those mid-ranges come through. But having said that, there's about 10, 15 good mid-ranges this year, so will they be worth picking it up?
And we'll get to the Roosters later, but it's that the worry there, it's like you've got multiple back rowers, like even whoever starts, they're actually going to play 80, we don't know. Massive worry.
There's some seriously good buys at the Roosters. I'll have 5 of them. They will all disappoint me over in Vegas, just like they did last year in Australia. But yes, we will get to those boys a little bit later on. At the Dragons, Tommy Sangster, your boys, diehard Dragons fan. Zach Lomax named on the wing. Bit of a blow. We were hoping to see him at fullback. That being said, doesn't mean he's not going to be there round 1. Tyrell Sloan named at fullback. I suspect they'll both spend time there during the trial, and Flannel will get a look at it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Lomax is a guy, hopefully he's kicking goals. But Sloan, I was just saying off air before, I feel like he just needs to go back to Reggie's and just concentrate on defence for half the season, prove that he can actually put his body on the line, and then he gets rewarded with an NRL start. He must have been doing pretty well in the pre-season under Flano, who had a plan to toughen him up to be named to start in this trial.
He would have broken down in tears and left Cogra Oval if he'd busted by now, because you're right, Flano's the right man to do it, isn't he? if Lomax is named at fullback round 1, which barring some big trial performances from Sloane, which is every possibility, I think Lomax plays round 1. I think there's a few little smoke balls there from Flano. If Lomax does look good in trials at fullback, gets named there round 1, kicking goals, would you be interested in him?
Yeah, kicking goals is key, and Flanagan himself might be kicking goals there. So it hinges entirely on that goal kicking. Lomax is not actually that good a goal kicker when you look at his overall percentages over his career. Flanagan's actually better, so I reckon Flano might be kicking, and he becomes probably a 50 average player in Supercoach, and then that makes him not a must-have, but
very
pretty handy,
isn't it? Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah. I don't want to have to do it, but you're right. And I mean, he scored relatively well back in the day we'll do a bit of digging on that, but at the Roosters when he was a starting half and goal kicking, albeit it was a red-hot team he was playing in. Spy, one of the bigger ones in the team list was Tom Eisenhuth, former Storm back rower, moved to the Dragons, starting on the edge in a strong Dragons side, dual CT dub, 2RF. He's very affordable. He could be an 80-minute edge back row to start the season.
I didn't know he was available in centres. Hello. Especially early on. I spoke about it the other week, but it's good to have, just while we're getting our sides set up, if you can rely on someone for 40, 50 points without costing you a bomb, pretty handy early on, and then you can move him to whoever's blitzing it from there. But interesting watch.
Yeah.
The issue there is that they've potentially getting Luciano Leilua, and they've got Raymond Fatala-Mariner. So they've identified that they're short in the edge back row. It's probably spiked Dylan Egan as cheapy as well, who Flanagan talked up the other day. So I don't see any of this being good news for Supercoach, to be honest. Just get Dylan Egan in there playing 80 minutes in round 1. Flano, come on, he's the next Matt Gillette.
Please.
Next Max Gillette, according to Ben Hunt.
Max Gillette.
He said it was, no, seriously.
Yes.
He actually said that, a quote, that it was like Matt Gillette was defending next to him.
That is amazing. Yeah. Gee, I'm getting some nostalgia.
Yeah. Boys, to wrap those up, Tessie New named at centre, scored a hat-trick on the weekend in a soft trial for the Dolphins. Jack Bostock starts on the wing. Look, I still think, I thought Tessie New was going to be on the wing in Bostock in Queensland Cup, but look, it's encouraging for Bostock, who's a tick over 300k. His numbers, we did the Dolphins last week, weren't good last year, but he will come into contention if lied on for CT Dub cheapies to start the season. The Newcastle Knights have named a strong side for their trial clash. No Jaden Brayley, which is a bit of a concern. Look, there might not be much in it. I don't know any detail as to why, but we wanted to see him probably getting as many minutes as possible in him in the preseason to consider him round 1. At the Raiders, Chevy Stewart named at 1, KO Weeks at 6. The interesting one here, Ethan Strange named at number 7 rather than at centre. We were probably where we anticipated to see him. No Jamal Fogarty in that side, so it doesn't mean everything, but maybe Weeks doesn't have the mortgage on the 6 that we think he does if Strange is playing 7. So just one to watch out for. All those blokes, along with Xavier Savage in the Raiders trial game. Going back quickly to the Roosters, Joseph Suaalii at centre. Joey Manu in reserves. I wouldn't read into any of that too much, despite the strong side that has been named. Tommy, let's get into a little Q&A with you. And I suppose firstly, mate, a lot of the diehard Supercoaches will know, but any major changes to the game this season?
Well, I think the biggest change is our big Vegas party for round 1 at the Star. If you can't get to Vegas, and let's face it, most of us can't, you can get to the Star. There's going to be 500 Supercoach nuts.
Next best thing.
In a room, in a licensed venue with a few special guests and speakers, etc. Could be fun, and it's free. So I reckon that is the biggest thing that we've come up with.
The biggest change
this year is just the round 1 party at the Star.
You can punch Scoos with Sangster at the Star.
Yep, you'll be. You might be there. You'll be coming in hot from. Yeah.
I have a wedding in God's country, Cooma, the night before. It is a very quick turnaround. It is on a farm. There's some work to do to get from point A to point B.
Who's driving you back? Is that the big factor?
Shout out to Trishy Williams, who will be driving me 5 hours.
You'll be there.
We'll see. Mate, get her an invite as well.
Yeah, well, that's true. That'll make us a chance. How do people get to it, mate?
So there's a link floating around, and I don't have it on me right now. You've caught me on the spot here, but basically just search Viva Non-Vegas. Search that, and you'll see the story come up.
It's all over socials.
It's all over socials.
You'll find it.
Go on Supercoach Social.
You'll find it. Talk to us, Tommy. What's the process you get a million people tweeting you, Xing you, whatever it's called, and telling you to change this rule, change this rule. What's the process look like at News Corp before the season starts when you consider these new rules and any changes to the game?
Well, essentially we have a big meeting in sort of April, May, and it's all locked in by then. So if you're hitting us up in sort of June, July, it's not going to happen. That's too late. Yeah, it's all locked in very, very early because obviously our provider. I mean, there's just so much going on, so much with Supercoach these days with NBL, BBL, the 2 footy codes as well. So we've got to plan ahead, a long way ahead. So yeah, it all gets locked in about May.
So if people want to pepper you with DMs, do it by April. If it's after that, they're wasting their time.
After that's no chance.
Mate, a few questions that have come in from the SC Playbook listeners. One from our good mate, the NRL Supercoach Sponge. Have they managed to change the 2 rounds before, change it to 2 rounds before price changes this year? If not, why not? So it's, of course, a player's price doesn't change in Supercoach until 3 games before price rise, until a player's played 3 games. And goes on to say that it has too many teams too similar because it takes 3 games. I know, Spy, you cottoned onto a tiny little thing in the stats department.
I was just on the projected scores. I was just looking at Nico Hines. I'm like, what could he lose? And I was like, hang on, this is changing a week early. So I was like, what's going on here?
And it's one that I've advocated for a little bit, Tommy. I would love to see prices change after 1 game. Supercoach BBL already does it. So, not an enormous change. It is within the game. I think it'd just reward those good selections early in the season. And I know a big part of what Supercoach do, things like additional trades last season, you're trying to get people to stay interested in the game because it's easy for us diehards of the game. We spend hours on it each week, but not everyone's like that. So a lot of the changes are made to keep people interested, which I think is fantastic. But around the 3-game price change.
Look, I like the idea. I think it's good to get sides looking less similar. It's not going to happen for this year, but if you DM me by April, we might get it on for next year.
This is my official notice, mate. You have been, it's before pre-April. You've been told. So round 1 next year, I expect to see it. Mate, the second one from Daniel Hackman, will there be any positional updates before round 1? When will the player database be updated, e.g. Raymond, Fatal and Mariner, the Dragons, showing up as a Bulldogs player? We'll get there, Daniel. I'm sure that'll be all right. And a couple of other ones there. So, but yeah, positional changes before round 1.
Yeah, definitely. After that final trial, we'll do a whole run through everything. We'll see what happens in the trials. There's a few, I don't want to say any right now that are locked in, but we've already got a list of about 4 or 5 that are basically 100% going to happen.
Is it just the guys that are clearly going to play that position? Or not clearly, but
so what's the criteria?
So at the start of the year, we basically decided that we'd go, if someone was a little bit ambiguous, we'd just give them 1 position and then we can add it later on after the trials. So there's going to be a lot of guys in that situation coming into round 1.
So you're saying AJ Brimson will be dual CT double fullback?
So what is he currently?
He's currently fullback, but also playing centre.
So he's one guy on the list that you can lock him in.
Oh yeah,
that's our 1 lock in.
I can't even draft him into my team just yet and play around with it because I can't do it yet, but it will happen before that. Now here's a really good one, and I love these questions that throw shade. His tag is literally anonymous, and he had an alias as a picture. But I stand by anonymous. One for Tommy. Any intel on the minutes split between the Panthers hookers this year? Sonny Luke looking at getting 50 minutes again.
Yeah, that was that was very good mail last year of a very, very reliable source, and it was on this. It was on this show. I'm pretty sure that I came up with it.
Yeah.
It just didn't pan out like that. I'm just saying because Mitch Kenny was so good. That's why it didn't pan out. But that was the plan at some stage, and I'm extremely confident of it, but it just didn't work out for Supercoaches. And I apologise, and I had Sonny Luke in my team, so I got stuffed around by it too.
Yeah, I do. I try and get to as many sort of reels and clipping things up as I can after the show, and I normally get to about 2 max. If I get a special guest like T Sangster on here, I might get to 2 of them among all the other podcasters. One of them was a ripping story about being on the piss with Brett Morris, and the second one out of the whole show was the Sonny Luke one. I'm like, oh, Tommy, I'm so sorry.
Well, this time you can clip up that from last year and then my mea culpa from this year next to each other.
Yeah, exactly right. I'll wait on this one and wait for it to fire, and then I'll re-clip it up and put something out for you, mate.
We'll get ultimate shame.
We'll get square again. I didn't ask you about this pre-show, I'm hoping you've got different. Do you have a Cleary-Hines combination at the moment at halfback?
Look, I currently do, but I'm really considering taking Cleary on. I don't like that buy early on. Hines is by far the better buy. He's got the better schedule. I think he's an absolute lock in my team. And then I can do so much with that money from Cleary that I'm considering going without him and taking him on. I know he's going to be popular. 2 tough games to start, then the buy in round 3, plus they got the travel to England as well. He's certainly not a lock in my team, and I think someone like Dylan Brown, who I'm sure we'll talk about later on, with his great schedule, I can spend my money on Dylan Brown instead.
I get it. I'm like, I haven't sort of faltered from that combination just yet. It's more because I don't like any of the alternatives to Nathan Cleary. I look at someone like, we'll get to him very shortly, but someone like Mitchell Moses, who has that great draw to start the season with Parramatta, a lot of games at home to start the year where they fire. But if you were going to go elsewhere at halfback, who sort of tickles your fancy?
At halfback,
Yes.
I'd probably go cheaper. I'd go Hines and a cheapie.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
Hines
I guess-
and then I'll spend
700K.
that money because I currently have 2 cheapies at 5'8", so I'd go to Dylan Brown, even though it's in a different position.
I guess Drew Hutchinson becomes one option there. If he starts round 1 with that dual position, he's someone you could run with.
I don't want to be tempted this year. I'm just locking the boys in, but
Aiden Caesar is a guy I'm looking at too, if he's kicking goals.
he's
not exciting, but if he's kicking goals.
thing on Caesar. I know the Tigers goal kickers. He has to be kicking, doesn't he? He hits them beautifully. It's not going to be like Appy overseas. You wouldn't think so. Could be an option.
Yeah, especially like if Appy's not playing 80, you want one bloke to have the role, don't you?
Caesar's a gun goal kicker.
Yeah, so yeah. Boys, the Parramatta Eels, let's get stuck into it. Their draw to start the season. They've got the Bulldogs away, the Panthers away, Seagulls at home, Tigers at home, Raiders away, Cowboys at home, then the Dolphins in Darwin. It's a good start to the year. As I said, I think it's 4 of their opening 6 at CommBank Stadium. And where shall we start? We'll start with Dylan Brown at 780k, 5'8", a position where people are struggling to fill a little bit this season in terms of anything other than Dylan Brown. If you want to pay up, he looks the man. Spy, you're very keen on him. He's averaged 76 and 74 the last 2 seasons. He scored 32 in round 1 against the Storm last year, then didn't have a score below 47 in 16 games. That 47 came against Penrith, because of course it did. 37 in base. He looks good.
And he's on the record as saying, I need to repay the faith. So I love that sort of stuff, like that added motivation. We know how good he is. He's not that old, so he's just another year that he's grown into his game. I've actually, since we spoke about him a few weeks ago, I haven't had him in my side. The longer I go on, I'm just like, I think I need him. I'm just worried about that 5'8" position with Preston. I always call him Preston, but Jaden Campbell under an injury cloud. And then I had a look just before we came on. His last 5 games before his suspension last year for Dylan Brown, 109, 116, 53, 113 and 84. Jeez. Then he was off for like 8 weeks. I'm like, that's the kind of stuff. If I'm playing around with 5'8" and a bloke I don't properly trust, I think it's just Dylan Brown time. Get him in, figure out the rest of the side. If I need to drop someone else in another position, I think Brown, I just have to get him in based on sort of, that's where I'm leaning on everything now.
Tommy, I don't have him in my side at the moment. I haven't looked super closely at put him in or got near to put him in just yet, despite the obvious appeal. One thing that sort of puts me away from him, I'm happy provided he's fit for round 1 to go Jaden Campbell at 5'8", along with someone like KO Weeks, who I'm a bit more nervous on, but hard to ignore at the price. There's just a lot of mouths to feed in attack at the Eels with Gutho, with Mitch Moses. They've got a lot of attacking weapons. That being said, it hasn't stopped Dylan Brown in the past. I just feel like it limits his ceiling a little bit. Even if he doesn't have the ceiling of some of the other players in the position, it doesn't mean he can't score 80 every week, does it?
Yeah, you're not going ceiling with Dylan Brown. You're going surety. He's got the base. He's got the draw. He's durable. He never gets injured. Basically, the only games he's missed in the last sort of half decade is when he was a naughty boy at the Golden Sheaf Hotel, an off-field incident. He's durable as, he's safe as, and with that draw, I'm really thinking of him ahead of Nathan Cleary.
Yeah.
I would say if Jaden Campbell is healthy, that's my one swap where I'd go.
Yeah,
like
so
him.
the mail on Cleary, Campbell is round 3
Yep.
for him. So
that's
I
a
don't think
line
it's gonna
through
happen.
that.
But Keanu Kinney could start at fullback.
I'm going to clip that up this evening.
That's not from me. That's from Trav Main. He's the man on the ground.
I'll say on Dylan Brown as well. He everything goes through him. Anything that Gutherson touches on that left edge is through him. Anything Lane touches is through him. Mitch takes the fifth tackle options a reasonable amount of the time, of course, but just the mouths to feed thing does not worry me with Dylan Brown.
If Jaden Campbell is out till round 3, as Sangster's reporting live exclusively on SC Playbook podcast,
it's not exclusive.
It'll make it interesting. Because I also don't want to be stuck playing sort of weeks at all if you're running. I'm happy with Campbell at the price to play him as my starter and be willing to cop the odd low score, but it might become having to pay out for Dylan Brown. We'll see how it goes.
Other downside on Brown is for blokes like me who have Cleary, Hines, like 2 elite fullbacks. It's just another bloke you're buying at top price.
I can't fit him into
which
my
just
squad.
makes value really hard and growth and just fitting him in general.
I've got gun fullbacks. One of them's Pappenhausen at the moment, and that's provided he comes out early in the trials. If he doesn't come back that well in the trials, I'm then paying up for someone like Turbo or Latrell or whoever it might be, Reece Walsh.
My spine is so stacked. I don't think I've got a bunch of Reggies in the rest of it.
Boys, Mitchy Moses, $6.95K, his halves partner. Look, if you're not going Cleary and you want to get a gun halfback in, we just mentioned Parramatta's draw, his goal kicking in a good team. Spy, I could make a case for him. He had 4 tons last year, top of 147 against the Knights, at 130 against the Rabbitohs. He had low score, so back-to-back seasons, 68 and 70 averaging. Did have some low scores last year, 16 against Melbourne. He had a 17 in round 10 against the Titans. I sort of thought that he'd shed this roller coaster tag a little bit in recent seasons, but when I looked into it a little bit more, he hasn't really. He also had 6 scores under 43 in 2022. All that being said, good draw, good team. I don't mind him.
Yeah, I'm not overly keen. I get the appeal, but for me, if you're that close to Nath Cleary or Hines, just get those blokes. Obviously, money's a factor, but for me, that second round match against Penrith, you could just see him punching out a 25 or something against that mob. So that worries me. I don't think
the Eels don't lose to Penrith.
They do step up
during regular
season. They'll be favourites. It's just not for me.
Tommy, Sean Lane, 446K, one of the most popular players in the game. Everyone that's been on this panel so far this pre-season's keen on him. Do you have any knocks on him?
No, not really. I mean, the knock is that they have so many back rowers at that club. Does he get eased in? He's been an 80-minute player for so long, except for last season when he was suffering injuries. But do they, for example, chuck Matto on the left at some stage and spell Lane? I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's pretty solid option for 80 minutes and he's in my team and I don't think he'll be moving.
Yeah, I think he's probably the value proposition to start the year out of all of them. Another back rower there, Jermaine Hopgood, 748K. Look, there are so many great mid-range back rowers and then Dave Fafita for a bit more expensive. I can't consider him, but his numbers last year, just incredible. Like, it was essentially his full rookie season. He'd played a few games in the seasons prior, but he started under 300K, averaged 73 points. He averaged 57 in base alone. His lowest score all year was 43. That was in a game, it was around about 8 or 9 from memory, and he'd played such huge minutes leading into that. He played off the bench, and Brad Arthur just gave him a bit of a spell. Put a line through that, and it was still 43 in 45 minutes. He didn't have a score under 50 all year. Unbelievable, but I don't think you'd start with him.
No, I don't think he can, not with all the good options there in the mid-range in the back row. He'll probably be in my team at some stage. Hopefully we get a locked-in keeper there in the back row that we can just rely on every week, but certainly not from round one when you've got guys between sort of 400 and 550 who are going to go up in price, whereas Hopgood probably goes down in price or stays steady.
Tommy, cheapies. Brendan Hands, Joey Lussick, chat out of the Eels that Brad Arthur wants an 80-minute hooker this season. If that does eventuate, Hands priced on a 30-point average from 50 minutes of game time last season. In his 5 80-minute games last year, he averaged 55.8 with 44.2 in base. Pretty good going if that does eventuate. Lussick, 47-point average in 3 80-minute games last year with 44.6 in base. However, his base in those 3 games was 56, 35 and 43, all over the shop, small sample size. either way, if one of these players gets named by themselves, will you have them in your hooking rotation?
Yeah, I think so. It obviously depends on Jaden Brayley and what's going on there, but I don't think Brayley's going to play, certainly not more than 60 minutes, and it could be a fair bit less given how well Phoenix Crossland did last year. Look, I think, are we actually going to see, is Brad Arthur going to follow through here and actually do it? Like, I know he says that he wants it, but is he actually going to do it? I don't know if he will for now. He might just ease in with the 2 hookers to start the year and then end the season with an 80-minute hooker.
I'm tempted. If Brendan Hands is named to start, no hooker on the bench, very tempted to look at starting him in my number 9 jersey there at hooker. So he's already on my bench. If you start him and drop down from Harry, what's that, 400K or something, if I'm going to put Dylan Brown in as well, it's a lot of money. If you can come out and just punch me out 50, mid-50s for 6 weeks with no buys coming up, that's pretty handy.
And partnering with who?
It would be a cheapie, like a Brayley or someone.
Very risky Spy.
But
risky because if by round 2 Lussick gets named on the bench because Hands can't hack the 80 well enough and they think otherwise, you got to find a lot of money somewhere to get to a decent.
I'd have to already have a plan.
Contingency plan.
I'd have someone that goes down to another. So it'd be a pre-planned thing. But I did look at their games last year when he played 80.
They're good.
They won most of them.
Yeah.
Not just Supercoach scores, but they won most of the games. He's got something about him, bit of spark. Not saying I'm going to do it. It's just something to ponder.
It could be a masterstroke. It could fall flat in your ass.
I'll be a very nervous man every week at 4 p.m. Tuesday.
Yeah. Hey, Matty at the Parramatta Eels. Anyone that's caught your eye, mate? It's interesting because outside of probably Sean Lane, there are a lot of options but no standouts. What do you reckon?
Yeah, obviously Sean Lane's the big one. Pretty much everyone's got him. Dylan Brown, as you guys have mentioned, I think he's going to have a great year. I mentioned a few weeks ago, because Sivo was outside that edge of Lane and Brown last year and they played barely any footy together, he could be someone that I'm looking at. But you're right, there are a lot of options, but no one that I'm really fired up for at this point.
A lot of people I'm 30% keen on.
That's right. Yep, I agree.
Which isn't quite enough just yet.
No.
Boys, at the Melbourne Storm, they start the season with games against Penrith at home, the Warriors at home, the Knights away into a bye, Broncos at home, Bulldogs at home, then they go Roosters and Rabbitohs away. There's one good thing about that, and that it's that they play 4 of their opening 5 games at home, but 4 of their opening 6 because they've got a bye in round 4. It's a tough draw to start the season for them. And, while there's a few players we're 30% keen on at the Storm, there's a few players I'm 80% keen on at the Storm, at the Eels, sorry. It makes it tough. It's a tough draw, Spy.
I'm backing off them early, boys. I've just got round 6 against the Dogs circled. It could be a boost week and 3 Melbourne Storm players coming in my side. Just that early Penrith game, never good. I'm worried about their go forward still. What's changed from last year in the pack there? Not a heap. There's just some question marks for me. We'll get to my main man, Lil Orion Pappenhausen, shortly. I'll go straight into it now. I'm just worried about owning him early.
Stuff the run sheet.
Spy has less and less regard for the run sheet with each and every week. He's growing in confidence. And I'm like, go, tell us about Ryan Pappenhausen, Spy.
You're getting to him anyway. Sorry about the disrespect there, mate.
That's right, mate.
We know his injury history, freak incidences, but he is a small body. So, the chance of that happening had just escalated a little bit. With Penrith and that round 4 bye, I don't see the need to touch him yet. If he's doing his thing and he's goal kicking, which we don't know if he necessarily will, round 6, bang, after the Brisbane game, straight in. I don't care who I have to drop down to him. I'll drop one of my elite fullbacks to Pappy if he's the Pappy we know. But for me, I'm just worried about starting with Ryan there. And if he gets a couple of 30s or something against Penrith, then he's got the bye. Whereas Turbo, Tommy, Latrell, all these boys are pumping out tons. It's a lot of points. So I understand that he's cheaper and it helps your side. But you look at Latrell, he's only 150k cheaper. I'd rather just lock Trell in early, as an example. And then round 6, Ryan Pappenhausen straight in if he's what we know.
Sangster, last 3 season averages, 90, 79, 71, of course, prior to 2023, where he played just 2 games, 96 minutes in total. He's priced at $645k. What's your thoughts on him, mate? Let's say, for argument's sake, that he's starting round 1 at fullback, which I suspect he probably will be, and let's say he's goal kicking.
It all hinges on the goal kicking. That's the number one thing. If he's kicking goals, then he is very hard to leave out. I'm also considering taking him on. He's very popular, and as you say, I mean, you're all over Latrell. I've currently got Ponga and Tommy Turbo there. I think there's a lot more upside there. Fullback is just so stacked. I think you don't take any risks there. And Pappenhausen, let's face it, is a risk with his injury history. Having said that, he could play 20 minutes on the weekend in this trial, absolutely kill it, and then I'm all over Pappenhausen again.
Word of warning for everybody, he probably will kill it tomorrow. It's a trial, which is basically touch footy. Yeah. Against the Dogs, young blokes. If he looks good, it's not Penrith round 1.
The Dogs team's good, though.
They named a good side. That helps.
Yeah.
But it's not Penrith round 1. That's all I would say, because trials can be misleading. But yeah, obviously, if we see him breaking clear and doing his thing, that's going to be good for everyone. Speaking of, he's on our telly Thursday night at 7. Does that not make you happy?
A good Dog side playing against a weak Storm side, but we get Pappy. So the biggest preseason watch along with Tom Sangster, and we get him first proper trial of the season, which is exciting.
And for the record, Tommy, I want Turbo as well. It's just that extra 80 or 50K. I don't know if I can quite afford it.
Good. So many day games to start the year, which I like. Turbo in a day game. Or in any weather is good.
If I can afford him over Trell, I'll have him. I'm with you.
Harry Grant, 750K. He's the best hooker in Supercoach. 27% ownership on site as it stands. Averaged 69 last season, leading into the State of Origin opener. In 2022, he averaged 85.6 leading into the State of Origin opener. Final 3 games of last year, played reduced minutes, 70 in 53 minutes, 59 in 66 minutes, 110 in 59 minutes. I say that because there's a bit of chat of him sharing that hooking role this season. Obviously, you want him playing 80, but if he does play that 50, sort of 60, 65 minute mark, it's not all detrimental to him because he has scored well in a smaller sample size. 79.66 in those final 3 games last season. Sangster, do you have Harry Grant at the moment?
I do, and I'm relatively confident. I'm worried about that round 4 bye. I like your chat about this round 6 stuff with the Storm, to be honest. So I'm potentially getting swayed. The issue is, who else do you go with? JMK's got an early bye too.
Exactly,
so you don't go there. The guy who I would go for is Brandon Smith. I think he's up for a huge year.
Did Clementine pay you to say that?
I have not listened to anything Clementine has said. But Brandon Smith, for me, with his draw to start the year, the pressure is on him this season. He's the key player at the Roosters. Let's face it. He'll
respond.
Well,
I'm with you. He'll respond.
Yeah, I don't mind him at he's in mid-4s, I think he is. So
speaking of run sheet, we're near the Roosters, and look where Sangster's gone here.
Obviously, it's fast forward.
We'll just rattle the bloke on your right.
Cheese is 471K. My issue with him is, and like I agree that he knows he needs a big year this season. He averaged 58 minutes last year for 46 points, so he really needs to get some attacking stats.
PPM was not good, and I'm assuming that's down because he played a fair bit of hooker as opposed to playing as a back rower. So that is an issue, and he can't play 80 minutes. I don't think, even if he gets really, really fit over the off season, I still don't think he's going to play 80 minutes.
And a lot of that first month for the Chooks last year was a write-off. Like, he wasn't his best. He also got knocked out one game. Like, if he's playing his 60 minutes at his best, he can be pretty good, can't he? Yeah. So, worth some thought there.
I'm pretty keen on Harry Grant, boys. I like what I see in the numbers from Marshall King last season and the improvement this season. But Harry Grant at 750K, I just think you're locking in the best hooker in the game. The attacking upside's phenomenal. JMK also has that round 3 bye. So, yeah, I'm pretty keen on Harry Grant. That being said, not locked in just yet, but pretty keen on him.
Do you start with him and then come that round 4 bye? If Jeremy Marshall's killing it, just flip straight down him and free up cash, potentially. It's just expensive as all. And word of warning, those last 3 games, sure, he scored well in limited minutes, but it's the end of the season. Defences are very different. So I think there's a few flags on Harry, but look, he always finds a way to score pretty well. He's not going to kill you, is he?
One that's intrigued me is Cameron Munster in 7% of teams at the moment. We've got all these issues around 5'8", and people struggling to find the player. Lots looking at Dylan Brown and just like, we'll just pay up for him. Cam Munster, He averaged 71 last season. He averaged 81 the year before, so you could argue he might be undervalued. Looked like he played injured at different stages last season. Hasn't averaged below 69 in 5 years. He started last season with an average of 78 points across the first 6 games, 32 in base last year, 2 tons last season, top of 124, 5 tons the year before that with a top of 147. A bit like Dylan Brown, Tommy, where he... Not necessarily the big scores that you sort of expect from Cam Munster, but very consistent. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm shocked that he's only at 7% ownership, that's for sure. I think he should be a fair bit higher. The round 4 bye is a big turn-off. The draw is not great when you look at the actual matchups too, but Munster just goes big in the tough matchups. So, I don't think you can go both Harry Grant and Cameron Munster. You need to choose one.
For sure.
Given the schedule. So, look, I'm probably leaning towards Harry at the moment.
And with that bye in round 4 or whatever it is, you don't want too many of these good Melbourne players because your depth will be severely tested early in the season.
That's what could deter me from Harry or Pappy. I know it's round 4 and I'm not getting too caught up in buys, but 2 big money players in key positions. You don't necessarily want both of them. To wrap up the Storm, Eli Katoa, 656k, 64-point average in 68 minutes last season. Busted an absolute ton of tackles in just 1.5% of teams to start the season. And also Sean Bloor, 445k. If Sean Bloor gets an 80-minute starting role on the edge for Storm, he becomes very appealing at a good mid-range 2RF price. Priced on a 44-point average from 47 minutes per game last season, basing 31 in that time with only 1 try, 1 try assist. He played 3 80-minute games last year. One was a 25-point game. That was round 27 when they got 50 put on him by Manly, put a line through it. His other 2 games, he scored 92 and 54 and had 50 and 40 in base in that time. Katoa, Bloor, any interest?
Certainly Bloor. I mean, if Bloor's named to start in round 1, then he is very, very tempting. I know there are a lot of good mid-rangers there in the back row, but Bloor's pretty high on the list for me. I think he'd fit into my top 5 mid-rangers in that position, and I'm considering going with 5 mid-rangers in that spot.
So my only question mark on Sean Bloor from a footy sense is he's quite a good defender physically. He's maybe a bit slow laterally, so that's something that could worry Craig Bellamy. But in saying that, if he's named to start round 1, that's a show of faith. Yep. That's enough for me. He'd be on my side if named.
I feel the same, and it's all these little things. If he gets named to start round 1, looks like he's going to be an 80-minute man, I then don't really want to have Grant, a Pappy in there, a Bloor. So if I want Bloor bad enough, it might cost me one of the other 2. So decisions to be made. Guys, if you've been sleeping in your parents' granny flat, you've been working your butt off lately at the office, you're sitting on a small fortune as a result, you don't want to wake up dusty on Sunday mornings this footy season to watch the Tigers and Dragons Jersey flag game with siblings, all the distractions that do come with that, maybe it's time to dip your toe into the property market. Most people out there think there's no chance of being able to afford property, especially if you live in Sydney, but it's far more achievable than you actually think, whether it's an investment property or your own home. So if you are interested in finding out a bit more, whether it's to buy now or planning to buy down the track, reach out to Paddy and George from Mortgage Choice SCW. Usually that'd sting you $129, but if you mention SC Playbook, it's completely free of charge. Flick them a message on Instagram at patandgeorge_SCW, or you can give them a buzz on 02 9521 1611. Doesn't matter where you are based in Australia. Email and more details in the articles at the SC Playbook website. Boys, the Warriors start the season with games against the Sharks at home, Storm away, Raiders at home, Knights at home, Rabbitohs away, Sea Eagles at home. The best part of all that, there isn't any buys. Spy, Sean Johnson, your boy, you're potting just about all your boys this year. What about SJ?
There's a theme. I had a 5-minute look at him because I had to. He actually made it into my side in 5 minutes, but I just can't do it. I'm on record of saying I want Cleary and Hines in, and if I was going to drop down from one of those guys, it would be something like Tommy's doing to a cheapie to free up a heap of cash. The draw's deceptively tough there for mine in those first 6 weeks. Most of the Warriors I'm finding are just probably priced pretty highly after a very good season last year. Shawnee, it wouldn't shock me if he comes out and scores around his average or a bit better, but there's work to do there. And with that draw, if it was an easier draw, I think there's merit. but not for me, unfortunately. Hopefully I can sneak him in there around the buys or something because I need one last hurrah.
Yeah.
The great man.
And while 2023 was a beautiful year for the Warriors and rugby league fans and Sean Johnson, the reality is the bloke gets injured a lot. So to be paying up the start of the season almost $800K for him, it's a big risk.
He also cut Brisbane to shreds in that semi-final on one leg. Unfortunately, they conceded about 50, but he was so good in it.
Yeah.
But, just a lot of risk involved.
Thanks to RTS, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck returns to the NRL this season. I think the price makers at Supercoach headquarters, they've got it just about bang on.
Nailed it.
At $539K. Under $500K, I'd be like, I haven't watched a minute of him in Union. I don't apologise for that. I would be going straight for him at under 500. Anything over... look, I'm not starting him. Anything over 550, I wouldn't even look at him. But 539 is just tempting enough. What are you expecting from RTS on return?
Look, playing centre is not an option. He's not on my radar whatsoever. Let's wait and see if he trials and what happens. But for me, he'd have to have a huge pre-season. Has he even been named today? I don't even know. But he'd have to...
Yes, he did get named.
Right,
So
he'd have to show something serious over the weekend because I don't want to be spending that much money at centre wing, to be honest. And if I was going to be spending that much money, it certainly wouldn't be on RTS, a guy who hasn't played NRL for a couple of years, and he's been playing, like, his good scores in Supercoach have all been at fullback.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you, mate. I'll put you on the spot. One that I love asking all Supercoach experts out there. Are you paying up for a Primo CT double all to start the season?
Probably not. I think the most expensive guy I'll go for is Taylor May, who's really popular.
Going very cheap.
And the rest will be cheaps / mid-rangers.
Tommy, after listening to you for many a year, I reckon you need one this year.
Yeah,
Shake it up a little bit, get one in.
I was watching you talk about Hammer the other day.
Hammer or Carraz.
And Carraz is not bad either. He's a real pod.
Because they're not
So
primo price. That's the thing.
yeah, you piqued my interest. With,
It's hammer time, Sangster.
Yeah.
Just on Roger, Tuivasa-Sheck as well. Does anyone ever come back at their best from rugby union immediately? I've yet to see it. So it's just have a watch. Easy enough to bring him in down the line there if he's looking good, but it's a pretty tough transition.
If he comes back, roams as centre, has 25 runs, reassess, he's affordable enough to get him in. You don't need to break the bank round 2 or 3. Spy, Adam Fanua-Blake, he was so good last season. He averaged 73 per game. That was up from 52 in 2022, 58 in 21, and 60 in 2020. He was outstanding. I just don't see any value in him to start the season.
No, he might, at his absolute best, score some tries again and average the same, but he's not making money, is he? Barring an absolute onslaught.
If I'm paying up for a primo front row up, which barring no one coming through, which is possible at this stage, it's going to be Tino or Payne Haas, I think.
The big dogs.
Boys, anyone else at the Warriors that we need to touch on? The 5'8 race.
Just Tamari Martin there at 5'8", if named. I don't know what they're planning, but
363K. If he does land that 5'8 spot, he's dual fullback and 5'8 as well, which is very handy.
Speaking of Jules, question for Mr. Sangster in the corner here. Harris Tavita named. I had a quick look at him today. Halfback only.
Yeah.
I think he's a 5'8 normally, so I reckon he'd be tempting at 5'8 backup if he got.
We will see what he does in the trials. He could be one of those guys who could get upgraded on his position. We've also got upgrades after round 6, 12 and 18.
So that kid is very good, so if he can get back in that side somewhere, one to watch, one to monitor.
Matty, I brushed you on the Storm, mate. The Warriors, anyone that piques your interest at all there?
Without, I'm risking getting a whole country go against me here, but
You will.
Yeah, the Warriors.
They're not known to be quiet, the Wars fans.
I love the Warriors, but they went really, really good last year, and I don't think they'll go really, really good this year. And if all these prices are based on last year, I think there could be a couple of traps in there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I don't think I don't think I'll touch many Warriors. I was looking at Roger before, but yeah, Spy, you make a good point. He's come back from rugby, and he's playing a new position as well, so maybe not.
It's a beautiful thing, Matty, watching your just Supercoach evolution, and just to hear you say that off a big season where they all killed it, they're priced at their peak, and look at you go, mate. You got this stuff worked out.
Yeah, it's totally taken a few years and a few long cartridges with you, but we're here now.
Boys, the Sydney Roosters start the season against the Broncos in Vegas. The Seagulls away, Rabbitohs at home, Panthers at home, Bulldogs away, Knights away. The start to the season is very difficult, in particular those first sort of 4 to 5 weeks. Going away to Vegas, we don't know how that's going to play out to start the year. Let's go at the top, and James Tedesco, a bloke that off the back of a poor season by his standards, by no one's spoken about him. I'm one of those players. He's not that old. He'd be, 31 or something. There's no reason why Teddy can't bounce back. And even last year, it was through no lack of effort. He still had his runs. He still busted tackles and did all that. He just lacked a lot of attack. Look, I think we're probably going to be a bit of a consensus on there being better attacking options. Actually, I think Tommy might have spooked him a little bit on the potty the other day.
It's like 3% ownership, which I think is ridiculous for James Tedesco, but it's just such a red-hot position. I don't think he can take that risk from round one. Let's see how the Roosters go. Most people are predicting that the Roosters will go better, and that makes sense. They've had so many injury issues over the last few years. Brandon Smith is coming into his second season at the club. You look at their squad 1 to 17, and it's just absolutely stacked. Even 1 to 24, they've got guys who'd be playing first grade at other clubs who probably won't even play this year. But, look, you got Ponga, Turbo, Pappenhausen, Latrell, all ahead for me for now. But keep an eye on Tedesco. If the Roosters are firing, then he'll probably be in my team at some stage this year.
He scored 4 tons after round 12 last year. I just having a look. That's surprising a little bit. Like, we know what he's capable of, but again, it couldn't be more of a watch list just to see how the Chooks are going, as Tommy says, and decide from there. But I'm not starting with him.
I expect him to improve on his 69 average this season, bounce back close towards that sort of mid-70s. I'm just not seeing those ceilings in him at the moment that you need at fullback, that all the players that Sangster just listed, that they have. Spy, I know you've mentioned a little bit that, while you're content with your halfback spots, I get the idea, and you even mentioned that if you were to go against, say, Cleary, you'd be looking for a mid-ranger, but you're pretty keen on, or expecting big things of, I should say, Sammy Walker at 610k.
Is it his year to finally not break out, because we know he can do, but just solidify, lock down that 7 jersey? I think he averaged 60 last year, so maybe gets it up to 70-odd, make 100k. It could be handy. That tricky early draw is a bit of a concern. If they had a couple of somewhat easier games in that opening month, I think he'd have a lot more appeal. But watch out for Sammy Walker this year. He's class act, and his goal kicking is fixed up. So
I was just about to say goal kicking is the key for him. If he's kicking, then he's a definite option. Suali'i is an underrated goal kicker. He's pretty good, isn't he? Amazing record. So I wouldn't be surprised if he actually kicks.
What about in the 4-pack? Because, for me, it's just going to be a massive watch. I know people are keen on sort of Terrell May there. You mentioned Brandon Smith, Sangster. We look at the edge spots and Suo Wong, who, again, I wouldn't read too much into him being named outside the starting team to start the year, but are there any forwards that pique your interest?
Yeah, I really want Angus Crichton to do well after the struggles that he's had off the field, but looks like he's on the outer of the club, and he could be in France by next week. So I don't think that's going to happen. But we should get a good mid-ranger there. Either it might be Wong or Satili, Tupanua, we're not sure. You just got to watch round 1 teams. But even if one of those guys are named, there are so many good mid-rangers at the back row that it would be tough to fit them in.
I've had Wong the whole preseason, but now I'm just worried is Satili's name to start. Are they going to share minutes?
Satili starting was a concern.
Yeah, although I think Wong was on the extended reserve, so maybe it's just his week off and he plays next week, but I want a bit more assurances that he's going to, not get spelled by one of the boys. Terrell May, though, I don't know if you're going to mention him, but he has been in my side the whole preseason since day dot. The talk of him wanting out of the club didn't help, because that's not going to go down overly well. But I had a look at his games, 4 games last year, over 39 minutes. That was just the number I picked there, around the 40 mark. He averaged 59 points per game in an average of 46 minutes. If he gets his 45, 46 minutes, if he can average up around 60, there was also another game he played 34 minutes for 72. But above all that, forgetting the numbers, I watched him late last year, and Matty would be the man over here to have a chat to, but Terrell May, he was a difference maker for him late in the season. I think they need him through the middle there. Contract talk worries me a bit, but surely he's got to be every chance of getting up around that 50-minute mark.
Sorry, I'm having Mike.
Matty's gone.
Mike's gone.
Matty's gone.
You
Mike's
did rattle
gone.
him.
Matty wants to get out. Matty wants to get out of here. It's a Tuesday night.
Thumbs up or thumbs down, Matty, on what I said. Thumbs up. Thank you.
Firm thumbs up from Matty the Waterboy. Yeah, look, went at 1.27 points per minute in 33 minutes last season. So a big round one watch on what the bench looks like. Do they pick a utility? Do they have Sand and Smith on there?
Team makeup,
I suspect it'd probably be someone like Connor Watson who'll be the utility to spell Brandon Smith. He could also spend time in the middle. So if it's a 4-forward bench, there's a big chance they're all middles and maybe like a Satilli on an edge there.
It's a bit of a risk, no doubt.
Just a big watch there to start the season. And Spencer Leniu, the other one to touch on. Look, not a bloke that I've ever been overly interested. I know anytime a good footballer changes club, there's hype around it from all circles. But look, he'd been a mid-20 minute averaging forward for years at Penrith off the bench, and he averaged about 1.24, 1.26 points per minute, so about 29 per game. He went up to 32 minutes per game last season, and he went at a point per minute for a 33-point average. Even if he gets the minutes, which I suspect he'll probably stay in a bench role, maybe with Maria Hargreaves out early, he could get a few starts. I just need to see the minutes come to him.
Nothing to me screams he's got a tank. He's one of the great impact players. I'd love him on my football side come off the bench there, but if you're relying on him for 40 minutes plus, you may be very severely let down. Thoughts, Sangster, on that one?
Yeah, I mean, with Samuel Hughes rather named to start in this trial, you'd certainly be going him over someone like Spencer Leniu. So that's the way I'll be going for now. I agree, he's an impact player. JWH is the big question, also around Terrell May as well.
Huge, yeah.
And is JWH back? I think he's back in round 2. So
Might
it's
be
just
round
one.
two.
Yeah, it's just
So
one,
annoying.
potentially one start for Leniu, if he even gets that start.
Yeah.
Boys, the West Tigers start the season on the bye. Probably not a horrible thing from a Supercoach perspective because I don't think they were overly Supercoach relevant to start the year. That being said, wooden spoon, cheap players, only improvement. Maybe there was some value there. The question is, I suppose, Sangster, with that round one bye, have you just put a line through all of them? Or as that's going to keep a lot of these players at very low ownership, is there maybe an opportunity to get some super pods to start the year?
Lots of cheapy potential at this club. I don't know if you want them from round one, but Latu Finu will probably be a cheapie at some stage this year, so keep him on your radar. I don't think he's going to start in round 2. Samuela Finu, again, there's a lot of chat floating around that he could start in the back row. I don't think it's going to happen, but keep an eye on him for sure. Sione Finu is another, three Finu brothers could all be cheapies at some stage this year. And then Josh Felaty as well, who
He's good. I like him.
For they've lost Nofaluma and Tommy Talau. Currently, you've got Staines in there on the win, and Junior Tupu's a good player as well.
And Tupu's leaving next year though as well.
He could be one injury away even.
Him maybe play around 2. It's certainly he'll play NRL this year. So keep an eye on those 4 guys as cheapies, but probably not from round 1.
I'd give anything to see them just rest all of their halves and just play Dream Buller at 5'8" in the preseason so that Sangster gives us Dream Buller as dual 5'8".
Sure.
Because he would be straight into my team and wouldn't leave it all year and he'd
Good, wouldn't
average
it?
75 at fullback.
Could we make an under-the-table deal here? What have I got in
Mate,
my
if
pocket?
Rob Sutherland was around, he'd sort something out. But I actually have integrity.
Rob would absolutely cut deals for us.
Easy.
Spy at the Tigers.
I've got no money anyway. I can't do it.
I know we sort of mentioned Aiden Caesar at the top of the show, but with that early bye, I can't justify. Look, there's no one that really interests me anyway. There is so much uncertainty around their starting lineup,
Especially the halves.
I think the forward pack relatively well picks itself to a degree, but the back line outside of Buller, there are so many question marks. The one good thing about the round 1 bye is, we can wait till round 4 before making any moves on them and we can get a look at them.
The only possibly rogue thing I could do, now that I've sort of basically talked myself into starting with Dylan Brown as my number 1 5'8", the hype train around Lockie Galvin is huge.
Isn't it ever?
Huge. He's 75k cheaper than KO Weeks. Do you take a punt that he's going to play early in that 5'8" role and save 75k for a bloke you're not playing anyway in KO Weeks? Because 75k across the rest of your side is pretty handy. Yes, you could get stuck with a non-player. That's the risk. But I mean, you got Dylan Brown. You don't need your backup 5'8". Dylan Brown gets hurt. I'm trading him, but it's risky. But
the problem is getting injured for one game. If he gets suspended
annoying.
for one game, but like, I think it's too big a risk in this day and age. Spike, concussions, they're so soft on suspensions now these days.
HIA
you
is
get one
true.
head knock, 1 week, you're in all sorts.
And
I get
I'd
it.
probably want more mail, and the question would be, what can that 75k do for my side? If it was a real difference maker in a key position, I'd maybe just run the gauntlet. But yeah, it's not without risk, that one.
If it was at centre wing or back row,
No other
I'd
backups.
consider it, but
Yeah, you've lost the plot in the off-season, Spy. You're living on the edge there.
Always live a bit on the edge.
Yeah.
I don't tend to then go through with it, but you've got to think outside the box.
Boys, a few questions before we wrap it up. Let's start with Stephen Hall. Is Burbo, Benny Trbojevic, the real deal this year? A first half hat-trick on the weekend against South Sydney's basically Harold Matthews side. So make of that what you will. But he could only beat what was put in front of him. A lot of red flags around Josh Schuster this season, like every other year. He could be starting round one. Sangster, I'll start with you. His dual position. He's cheap.
Yeah, he's locked in for me for now. It looks like he's going to get that starting role. Schuster, who knows what's going on with Schuster, but I think Burbo is as close to a cheapie as we have in Supercoach right now.
He looks a bit bigger this year.
He's
manned up a bit, the young fella.
Even before. He looked good last year. He just kept getting injured. Shock.
I owned him a lot of last year because I know his potential, and the boy can play footy, but just head knocks. But that price doesn't matter.
Even if he starts round one and Schuster starts by round 2 on the edge or something, and he's off the bench and playing limited minutes, it's not ideal. But at the same time, with his dual positioning, you don't necessarily have to play him each week. You know, there's an injury on field anywhere. He probably slots in anywhere in the back line, on the edge, in the forwards.
He's scored 100 playing in the back row before, so that's all you need to know.
Yes, I'm really tempted. Obviously, he'd need to be starting round 0 over in Vegas.
I'll play him in my centres if he starts in the back row, yeah, for sure.
He could be like a 60-point averaging. Let's even be more cautious. A 45, 50 averaging centre. Let's say 45 to start the year at that price. Sweet.
Laughing.
Yeah. Or he could be named to start, last 10 minutes, get benched, and be bench fodder for 27
You
minutes.
won't get benched, but the head knock worries me.
Boys, question from Life's a Mitch podcast. Is it better to have all mid-range 2RFs or at least one gun in there? Now, I've had a bit of a chat about this recently, or throughout the preseason, I should say, and I'm going against a gun there, and I was wanting to get sort of Cam Murray into my team, but Sangster, we'll get your thoughts. It's the best position in the game to start the year. There's so much value.
Yeah, I've got 5 mid-ranges there at the moment, and I think I'll follow through with that. Pending, I mean, I don't see it changing too much, to be honest. So, yeah, stack up on mid-ranges there. And then in the front row, get Tino Fuasamawali and maybe Payne Haas. Probably at least one of them. I'll get probably Tino first and Haas second. But, yeah, mid-ranges in the back row this year is the way to go.
Paying up for Tino. Spy question from Jack Davidson. Thoughts on Inari Tuala if he gets the right wing spot at the Knights? And it doesn't have to just be Inari Tuala. Like, there are a few names that have been thrown out there. He's more expensive, but Tommy Jenkins, the former Panther. There's Will Price, son of English great Leon Price, come over from England. How do you feel about that right wing spot? I don't like it because I think the left wing gets all the ball. That being said, Dane Gagai was putting it on an absolute platter last year for Dom Young.
No, I like the spot. Dom Young is outstanding. The way
Yeah.
he timed his runs off Gagai was brilliant, but if it's a reasonably priced fella on the right there, as someone mentioned the other day, the right wing last year was top try scorer in the NRL, so don't overlook it too much.
Yeah, not for me, but do as you will. Last one to wrap it up for the show. Jono O'Brien, there's been a bit of chat about Flanagan and Caesar this show, and he asks, if Flano or Caesar are goal kicking, would you take one of those guys over KO Weeks at 5'8", Sangster?
Both of them I'm keen on. Flanagan,
who's your
particularly if
preference?
he's kicking.
Flano?
I'd probably take Flanagan first, but Caesar, the issue with him is he doesn't play around one, but I don't mind either of them. Plus you've got Drew Hutch as well. You can get in there. So a few sort of borderline cheapy mid-range guys who you can pick in the halves.
Drew's at halfback, yeah. So
At
Drew's
half, yeah, but I'd probably have Hutchison at centre wing.
Okay.
But yeah, I like both Flano and Caesar. I'm I'm coming around to, and you could get weeks in there as well.
Boys.
Loves a cheapie Sangster.
Oh,
Yeah.
Guns and rooks.
Bargain hunter. Guys, let's wrap that up for the SC Playbook podcast this week. Next week, we'll have trial recaps and really get into the nitty-gritty of the season. Spy, thank you, mate.
Cheers, boys.
Sangster, appreciate you coming on. Look forward to a
Cheers.
big year ahead.
Absolutely.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for tuning in.